Select Board to order on Monday, September 12, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. Please join me in saluting the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The record show all selectmen are present. Consent agenda warrant number 6, 8/22/22, number 7, 8/22/22, payroll register number 34, 8/25/22, and number 35, 9/1/22.
Make a motion we accept the warrants and the payroll register.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to accept the warrants and payroll register as read. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. We have an application, which is not on here, an application for a catering permit from GRR Incorporated, which is Glenn's Place in Corona Island, Maine. They are going to the Fairy Tale Gardens at 1619 East Madison Road on September 24th. Looking for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve a catering permit for GRR Incorporated to put it on at Fairy Tale Gardens in East Madison. Any questions? Mr. Moody?
Is there a date with that?
Yes, September 24th.
Just that one day?
Just that one day. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. And I assume I have to sign this, Mr. Gross?
Yeah, there's 4 spots there.
I'm not sure why they give you 4 spots for 5 people, but.
I'll give it to the person who just handed it.
All right, letter D, acceptance of the meeting minutes from August 22nd, 2022.
Move to accept the August 22nd, 2022.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept the meeting minutes from August 22nd, 2022. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr.
could you also have a motion to accept the minutes from the special town meeting on the 29th? They're also in your packet.
Okay.
While you're all
To
here.
accept the minutes from the 29th.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept the meeting minutes from August 29th, special town meeting. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. Old business, Mr. Moody?
Is this the time you need to vote?
Nope.
Fast?
Nope, it's coming up.
It is?
Yep. Letter number 2, new business.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Mr. Manta?
I'm sorry, we could have the town meeting minutes signed.
What? Okay. Mr. Gopi?
Special town meeting.
Yeah, let's get those ones. Thank you.
Items of communication, Mr. Town Manager?
All right. Last week we had an inspection from Maine Municipal's Risk Management to check to see if we qualified for any discounts because of our safety programs and protocols. And I'd like to publicly thank Tammy Carrier, Don French, and Jeff Wright for the work that they did. They got us to a tier 1 level, which actually results in a small discount in our workers' comp insurance. So excellent work done by all those folks. All right, Tris might have to help me on this. And the state has changed the process for hunting permits to a certain degree. And there's a fee that the state will charge for your hunting permit. And we can't collect it at the town office. It has to be paid to the state. They're trying to drive everybody to website credit card use. And I know we've got a lot of hunters, even folks up in this room that would rather just pay everything at the town office. So if you get complaints from people saying they're getting the runaround on this new hunting fee, it's a state fee that just came out this year. But the flip side is you can get a doe permit,
So it is the
the doe permit,
dough permit fee. So if you applied for one and you got a dough permit, you then have to turn around and pay a fee to the state this year for that dough permit. And they're asking you to you have to actually pay the state. We've had people trying to pay us and we just can't take the payment.
But you also get $1 too, right?
Right.
Everybody knew that part.
Yeah.
You only have until the 28th.
So what's that?
You only have until the 28th to pay your $14 on the internet.
It's just, apparently it's about that.
All right, you guys know more than I do, so that's good. So since the town meeting and the tax bills went out, we have asked people for more information if they want to be on an email list and receive public notices. So I'm pleased to report that we've got quite a few, and we've cleaned up the old one that we have, and we have 165 good current addresses of emails for folks who want to be on that information list. All right, another thing to keep your eye on. Mike Ricker, the town sexton, is working up at Forest Hills, and he's resetting some stones. So in the process of doing that, he's taken stones off and laid them down. So if anybody calls you and says there's been vandalism up at Forest Hills, he's in the process of resetting those stones. So just be aware of that. The next scheduled selectmen's meeting is at the East Madison Fire Station on the 26th. Is that still comfortable with everyone? It's been a while since we've been over there, but I think we're in the clear. All right, so the next meeting will be on the 26th, will be at the East Madison Fire Station. And that's all I've got.
New business, number 1, department head reports. Mr. Fire Chief. Question. Sorry.
Yeah, on these department heads, is this something new with the town clerk and the code enforcement officer?
We have done town department head reports on the first meeting of every month,
Right.
and we've tried to get more of a variety. But in the past, we just, we kind of stuck with fire and police and highway. But in this case, the code enforcement officer is new, and the clerk treasurer is new, and there's important information about the elections that we wanted to be made public. So that's why I asked them to join in these reports.
Mr. Fire Chief.
Hi, how are you? Our new fire truck is in Mississippi, getting ready to be shipped up. It was supposed to be here last week. The truck driver is going to ship it up on a flatbed, come down with COVID. So hopefully Wednesday night she'll arrive in Madison. What we plan on doing is slowly putting it together. We'll store it out to Madison Electric undercover at night. Once we get it fully operational, we'll bring it in house station and house it there in the in-town station. Tim and I have been talking about what we're going to do with the old one. We've got a couple ideas, and I guess he'll probably discuss it with you. Other than that, nothing. Other than I'm losing firefighters, I just had another one get done. I'm down to 16, both companies. I had one guy that's really wants to stay on, but his health has drove him to resign. So we have probably 5 or 6 in town. The rest are out of town. The one's out of town. Some of them live in Skowhegan, Conville. So something to think about. I don't feel that we're ready to go full-time in the town of Madison like Anson did, but I do feel that we got to do something about this shortage. What the answer is, I don't know.
Has there any been anything done as far as trying to get people interested, notices of any type or anything like that? To let people know that we are real short-handed, and sometimes people just aren't aware that there is an opportunity. If somehow we could get that out, even if we put it on the sign or do something with it. Or even put a sign in front of the fire station.
Maybe that's, do both.
Do both.
And do something.
See if you can generate some interest somewhere.
It's terrible. I can't remember the last time I hired a guy. I think it's been on 3 or 4 years
I
now.
haven't got it. There's so many state requirements now, it's hard for people
There's
that are
100 and
working.
some hours for the classes. Got to travel to go through the classes 2 times, 3 times a week.
It's hard on a working man.
This for the family.
Yep.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fire Chief.
Did you want to bring that up?
Sheriff's report is,
Is that about the?
Old tanker?
Yeah, like Donnie had alluded to, we have to do something with the old tanker. There wasn't a trade involved when we purchased this new truck. So it's a 1990 manual transmission with some leaky tanks. And so it really hasn't been out of the garage for quite a while. It did get inspected this year, so it's got a sticker on it. So Don and I have talked about a couple different options, and at a future meeting, I'll bring you some of those options for you to discuss and see which way you want to go with that.
all right, sheriff's report.
That was
Has
emailed.
not come.
That was emailed late today, about 4 o'clock, and so I just forwarded it to you folks for the August sheriff's report.
All right, Mr. Road Commissioner?
All the roads have been prepped and ready for paving. I put a call into the company today to tell them we were ready. I have not heard back from them. Tentatively, a month ago, he said it was going to be mid-September. He hired 2 new gentlemen up to the garage that will be starting Monday. The culvert on the Schuster Road, that structure that we put in, the beavers have actively been working at and plugged it up again. So we were out there most of the day today trying to get that unplugged and hopefully get them trapped out by the end of the week. Well,
Who, are the 2 new hires you got?
pardon?
Who are the 2 new hires?
One gentleman from Anson and one from Madison.
Lorraine?
No,
We probably ought to wait till they're hired, until they start.
Oh.
they'll
So
be
they
starting
haven't-
Monday.
They haven't started
Oh,
yet,
they're
so.
Yeah.
Start Monday?
Yeah.
The problems on Blackwell Hill, have those been ironed out? Fixed?
Yep, all set.
Everything's good?
Yep.
All the Curtises are happy.
All right. Town clerk.
All right, basically, we just wanted to take the absentee process that we have to do 30 days ahead of the election and do that process at the main office. So this is still the polling place on election day. But there's more staff at the office. I'm not trying to be split between 2 places. And I just think it would be a smoother operation for me at this point to have it back there, which is going to mean that we've got to move this absentee balloting box that's out here mounted on the wall, because it legally has to be on the building that you're having your absentee balloting process done. So with that said, I will need to get that box back up there within the next couple of weeks. I think it's pretty much just taking bolts off, right?
Trish, how are we making the town people aware of this?
Well, that's, my plan is to put a newspaper article out and we can put it on the website. We've got to update the website anyways with some other dates, because I need to be open for registrar hours within the 5 days before the election. It's like a 5 to 7 type of, for 2 hours. So I can do absentees that night or that day through till 7 o'clock along with registrar. But yeah, I'll have to put it in the newspaper. I don't know what else, other than that, and putting it on our website. Or put a sign on the door down here to say, come absentee at town hall.
The more the better, probably.
Well, I think people would be more apt to come to the hall anyway, but they've had it down here for what, 2 elections now? And I don't mean to get people, confused, but I think it's going to be better to have the staff at the office be more involved in the process. And I've collected 60 written applications so far, and we haven't even gotten to the point where we're going to get ballots in the door yet.
So I think I'm reading the concern on the fire chief's face.
Yeah, it's not the first time I've heard of it.
Hold on, that's why we're talking about it.
Okay.
We're not talking about election day clearing out the firehouse.
No.
We'll have an election day here.
Great.
There we go. That's yeah. Look on your face, I was like,
I was going to say, you don't bring that back.
I think I know what he's
Ain't
thinking.
gonna happen.
You could breathe.
But when does in-person absentee voting start?
So our ballot should be to us before the 10th of October, which is a holiday. and we'll be starting that very next day.
So from the 11th of October till a couple days before November 8th.
Right, so the Thursday before the elections, when that process is supposed to stop, but there is still some special circumstance ones that could
So
play
dur-
in.
So during that time, people will be turning in their ballots, and they can in-person vote
Correct.
at the town office, and we'll set up polls in the assembly room.
So we're planning on bringing up a few of the booths and just putting them in the council room so that people have a stand-up station, or they can sit down at one of the tables. They've done it up there many, many years in the past, prior to
Yeah.
the election day.
So maybe the 168 emails you have now. you could
Yeah.
send out to-
We certainly can. Yeah.
I guess it's a good thing we fix those quickly. All right, anything else?
No, things are as usual.
Thanks. All right, code enforcement. Okay?
Yes, wrote up a brief report for the last 8 weeks. Had a lot of time reviewing old permits, trying to bring them up to date and get them signed off on. The last 8 weeks, we've had 11 new building permits. It's 34 for the year, which is about average from where we were last year. This year, it's a little different. 11 of these out of the 34 are brand new homes that are coming to this town that have never been on a lot. So hopefully that's good news, get some money for the tax basis. A new home requires about 10 inspections from start to finish. 14 new plumbing permits in the last 8 weeks, 31 for the year. Plumbing permits are anywhere from 2 to 4 inspections. Some shoreline zoning, tree removal permits out to the lake. 6 property violation health calls. 4 trips out to the lake for shoreline zoning pictures, after pictures. These are pictures that the state requires. I think it's from 2018. They want an after picture after the work's 100% done. Planning board permits, a lot of work up to the playground, getting it ready for the Madison Anson days. There's a lot of broken equipment, a lot of weeds, a lot of raking, and some repairs down here, and just minor stuff.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any questions for Jay? Any questions for any of the 5? Except for maybe the chair. All right, moving forward, discuss carry forward of the $25,000 to fund full-time code enforcement position. Mr. Town Manager?
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could just recap a little bit of how we got here. At our meetings in August, on August 8th and the 22nd, I had asked the board to carry forward unused funds from the previous budget to fund a full-time code officer. During last year's budget process, I created a full-time position. I didn't have anybody in mind for that position because I knew that the part-time code officer that we had, Amos Michu, was going to leave. And so not having anybody, I decided, well, instead of just adding another $25,000 to the budget, to the taxpayer, I'll deduct that from the full-time line and I will carry forward, or at least request to have carry forward enough to fund it. So after town meeting, as most everybody is aware, Jay Watt approached me about the position. We discussed it. I interviewed him, and I made the decision to hire him for that full-time position, recognizing that I still would have to try to get that money carried forward. So on the 8th of August, we talked about carry forwards, and this board unanimously approved carry forwards for Highway Department, Fire, Library, and some computer work for general government. But by a 2-3 vote, they failed to carry forward the $25,000 to fully fund code enforcement. I've talked about this on a couple of occasions, and at the last meeting, we had an executive session to cover some related issues, and out of that executive session, there was a vote or a motion made and seconded to move this money forward, but Mr. Moody asked to table that. He wanted more time to think about it, and so that's what we did, and Mrs. Dwyer withdrew her motion, and so that brings us to where we are today. Just reiterate for the board that for the last 54 months prior to June, we had been without a code officer for 28 of those months. I've had conversations with every member of the board individually here about this. On a couple of occasions, people refer back to Bobby Dunphy, who did a great job for us and got done in 2017. But since that time, we have not been able to maintain a code officer The two that we have hired during that time have both left us to go to full-time jobs. So I believe that we do need a full-time code officer. I've taken 75% of the calls. I think that's light, but that's a good average of what I've done over the last 5 years, is taking those code officer calls and try to field them out to a committee of Leo Mayo and Dave Savage and other folks that have been able to help us, but it's not the same as having your own code officer. In the packets, I wrote a list of current property maintenance violations and a list of duties that need to be attended to for maintenance and so forth. These are things that I'm just not getting to. I had in the past, but my point about Bobby Dunphy is this, and I really appreciate the work that he did, but he worked in a different era. He worked at the very beginning of the Mubeck Building Code. At his tail end of his time, we were just starting to enforce the property maintenance code. And the select board at that time really wanted it enforced. And rather than pushing that on to Bobby, I took it on myself. Then in 2015, the state made it easier for towns to deal with abandoned and dangerous buildings. So again, I took that on in lieu of not having a code officer. So these are things that need to be done that I admit I'm not getting done. And so that leads me to this point where I am asking once again to consider funding with the $25,000 carry forward I've requested a full-time code position.
All right, so can I get a motion to approve the carry forward, please, before we start? All right, we have a second. I'll second it, just to talk about it. All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve the carry forward of $25,000 to fund the full-time code enforcement position. Any questions on the board? Any other questions? Yes.
My question is for Mr. Moody and Mr. Moody. You both made it very clear to Mr. Curtis on August 8th that you didn't have a problem with the code enforcement job. Your problem was with the maintenance portion of it. Because the maintenance portion wasn't voted on by the town. Can either of you please explain why, when you had the opportunity to take this matter to the special town meeting with the Weston Avenue project, neither of you voted yes or no, and neither of you sustained to vote?
I'll answer your question. First of all, I'm not against a code enforcement officer. We do need one. But this town has never been able to justify one full-time, to keep one working more than 2-3 days a week. My problem is that I'm not ready to accept a part-time maintenance person, okay? We had a maintenance person back when Norman Dean was here, and he more or less was a janitor, couldn't justify him, so we eliminated the position. As far as the maintenance end of it, if we, in hiring a code enforcement officer full-time, which cannot keep him busy, just doing code enforcement, it's going to cost this town $75,000 for pay and benefits. I don't think it's fair to the other town employees that a part-time maintenance person be paid $25 an hour when only some of the operators up to the highway garage are making that much money. I don't think it's fair to those people. I don't think we can justify that kind of money for a part-time maintenance person. That's just my feeling, and I don't think the town needs to spend $75,000. I do agree with you 100% that we do need a code enforcement officer. Yes, I do. But full-time cannot keep one busy.
So all of the work that needs to be done on the town-owned properties and the maintenance on the playgrounds,
Yep.
can you contract that out for less than $25,000 a year?
I don't know, I haven't tried, I don't know. I don't know, but
Mr.
one thing
McKinney,
about
you're
it,
a
once these
contractor.
items are taken care of, then what?
So hold on. I have, Ron, Mr. Moody, excuse me. I don't know if I agree with you. We've never tried a full-time code enforcement officer. So we've said it over and over again that we try to we don't have enough to keep somebody busy. I'm not gonna agree with you on that point, because I think that we have to figure that out, and I think that's what the plan was for this year, is to figure that out. If we have enough time for somebody to do that job, we don't know that. Right? We don't know that. We haven't experienced that. We say we don't because we've only had extremely part-time people. I mean, I think, in my opinion, it's worth a try. I think that it's worth a try to get that to see if it's enough time. And I think by some of this information, we can make that determination in April, May, when we do budgets. But that's just my opinion. Mr. Duchamp?
Thank you. Just a question. Is the code enforcement officer, is part of the code enforcement officer's job to enforce the property maintenance, that type of stuff?
Yes.
If it's the case, then I can tell you, you need way more code enforcement time. Because I can leave here right now, and in 5 minutes, I can point out 10 properties that are in violation of the property maintenance ordinance. And clearly, they don't have time right now to do it on a part-time basis. So I would say, in a pre-Mubeck era, perhaps we didn't have enough. But Mubeck has just really changed the dynamic. Plus, we added, when I was on board, we added this property maintenance thing, which became part of the code enforcement piece. So I would agree with Selectman Venziano on that.
Yeah. Yes.
So my question is like, I thought this was discussed during the budget season, wasn't it kind of, if I knew about it, the joke in the town office was, we were the last to know. But I feel like if I knew about it, then it had to be already discussed, because I felt like we were looking for a full-time code enforcement officer because wasn't able to keep one. I mean, they were good part-time people that we had. They were great people, and they did a very good job. But obviously, they did such a good job, others wanted them. So I thought this was discussed during budget season. So I guess I'm not sure. Maybe the part of the $25,000 being carried forward, maybe that part was missed. I don't know, but I felt like if I knew that this was going to be full-time, that it was clear that it was full-time with benefits.
You can't contract anything up for $25 an hour, no matter what you do. So, in that aspect, that's a cheap rate.
Yes, sir.
And just as far as keeping them busy, in light of the list that we see here, sounds to me like you're going to be very busy. And I'm completely in support of this. I don't understand why we can't agree on this, at least try it this year and see what happens, because I think it's going to, the results are going to show that he's going to become busy. And Tim, I will reiterate myself again, Tim should not be doing all of this maintenance that he's been doing and trying to be a town manager as well. That affects his effectiveness. And we need to stop doing that.
If I remember
If he
right.
decides not to do it, do the realm of his job and not all the maintenance, who's going to do it? You have to contract it out, right?
Yes. And I think, if I remember right, we talked about Tim's job evaluation, we told him not to get too much on his plate. So I think that's something to take off his plate, in my opinion. Yes, Amber?
Mary Thomason is a planning board member who also mentioned on the August 8th meeting that when Bobby Duffy was here, he was only part-time and he didn't have enough time to do all of the stuff that he needed to do with the hours that he had.
All right, any other questions? Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? All right, we have 2. Opposed? We have 3. The motion is denied.
Why are they opposed?
All right,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
I believe in a public meeting, especially with those people in attendance and whatnot, that it is the right of the taxpayer to poll the board
Okay, so
and,
we would.
and have an answer for why they asked. And I don't mind doing that. I'm a taxpayer myself, so can I ask Mrs. Dwyer why you voted in favor?
Well, I kind of pretty much explained myself. We need this. We need to have a full-time code enforcement officer because the rules have changed over the last few years. It's a full-time job. And this town has some really wonderful things going on. And we need to take care of it. And you guys, you voters, need to approve this too because we need to give this to you. We're sitting here making judgments on this, and I said it last meeting, and I'll say it again. 10 or 15 years, some of us are going to be gone, and it's going to be up to you guys to run this thing. And I think we should support this, and we should support it now. And frankly, I don't understand why they asked for it. It doesn't make sense.
So, Mr. Hagopian, why did you vote against it?
Because in the budget, what the town voted on is $52,750. And then when it came to carry forward, you wanted to carry $25,000 more forward.
Thanks.
Okay, on that $25,000, you should have put that in the budget to begin with. I mean, if you wanted a code enforcement officer full-time and you wanted a maintenance guy full-time with that position, you put in $52,000. And that's what the townspeople voted on at the meeting, and that's what they got. Now, 2 months later, we can't go ahead and, or we can, but it's not right because these people out here already voted on it, and that's the way they voted for it. So I'm staying with the 52. You can still put in for maintenance, you can still put in for your code enforcement officer, but you got $52,750 to work with. And if it's not, then you take the rest of it out of your budget.
Mr. Vanziano, why did you vote?
I think we need to move the town forward with a person to see if we have enough work for a full-time person. I mean, we haven't had with that extremely part-time people in the past. And I think as Mr. Duchamp said, we got property maintenance issues that have to be addressed. We have all of these permit here that need to be addressed, and we need to move the town forward, and we're not moving it forward in this vote.
Mr. Manchin, why did you vote against it?
I don't believe we need to pay $25 an hour for a janitor or somebody to rake leaves. And a lot of this stuff, you have point person, is that a person standing around watching somebody else do the work? I don't understand a lot of that stuff you had in here was what Highway did before. I see you have taken that out, but he has no equipment. He has no tools unless he uses his own. I just see this growing into another department. Next year we'll have to put in for pickup because his mileage will be too much to justify, and it's on and on it goes. He has no budget to do much of this work with unless it comes out of your budget. I don't think it's very well planned out for the maintenance part. I do believe we do need a code enforcement officer. I'm not opposed to that at all.
Mr. Moody, why did you vote no?
Well, if we had taken to town meeting code enforcement officer / maintenance man, I wouldn't even be here arguing with you or going against some of these things. But it wasn't taken to town meeting that way. If you want to take it to town meeting next year that way, and then let the town vote on it, I'm all for that. But I'm not going against what they voted on this past town meeting.
Why couldn't we have taken it to the
Oh,
special?
So I don't have, like I said, I tried to explain the way I feel. I don't have a problem that we need a code enforcement officer. My problem is that we are taking advantage of making it a / maintenance person, and the town didn't tell us go ahead and do it.
I think we.
Now, if you want to bring it up next year, I'll put it in the referendum, in town meeting. I don't have a problem with that. But it's, you know, if my splitting hairs, maybe so. But I don't want somebody asking me, why did you do this when we didn't vote on it at town meeting? I'm just listening to the people.
I think we're done with public comment.
Yep.
We're
It's
done
up-
with
that's up to you.
All right, that's done. It has been voted on and not approved.
Can I just ask for one more piece of guidance in this regard? I think Mr. Hagopian alluded to it and Mr. Mantor alluded to it. So is it my understanding that if we are to retain Jay Watt as a full-time position, I don't have the funding that I asked for, the extra $25,000. But it's my understanding that this board is okay with retaining him full-time as long as I find the money elsewhere within the confines of the current budget.
I am.
I am as well.
So you're telling people out here that you have $25,000 stashed away in your budget?
No, but the reason that we have carry forward money every year is that we don't spend our budget fully. And if we are able to find savings in other parts of it can only be the general government budget. It can't be from highway, it can't be from fire, anywhere else. It has to be within that $600,000 or so of that general government. So if I can find enough savings there, is the board in favor of me keeping a full-time code officer?
I'm not done yet. Let's go a little bit further here. Tell the people out here what carryover forward means. And if we don't carry it over, where it goes.
Wait a minute. I'll carry forward is what was not used in that particular line in that year. We have over the past many years as I've done this, I think, carried forward money. Every single year we've carried forward money. Other entities spend it in the spring and they don't have that carry forward. So what we're doing is taking money that wasn't spent out of general government, out of fire, out of highway, and bringing it forward into the next year. It's just a process. I mean, it's the way it's done. If we don't want to do that, then we have to tell the people who are our department heads, because they're gonna take this in a different track coming up in the next budget. Mr. Gopi.
Yes, this carry forward also goes into the general fund.
Yes.
Which will go back to the taxpayers, so you
Yep.
can give them a tax break at the end of the year like you get every year.
Most of the tax break, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Town Manager, comes from the revenue side of this.
Unanticipated revenue.
Unanticipated revenue. That's where your biggest carry forward comes. I mean, your biggest revenues come from. I mean, we're talking 25,000. We already approved it. Well, in the general budget, 85. We already approved 85,000 to carry forward, right?
No, about 100.
About 100. Okay.
And if I remember, it was a unanimous vote.
Right. So I mean, it isn't like we don't do that and have not done that in the past.
But you have to, I'm just saying, the carryover is to lower your taxes the following year, to help bring it down. And if you need it desperately, which we can do, we can go into the general fund, correct? We can't take anything out of the general fund without a special town meeting.
That is correct.
All right, but we can put carry forward into keep them in their line with that same amount of money, so they can keep rolling it over.
Right.
That's correct.
So if that's correct, then how come every year this budget should be getting smaller or staying where it is?
Well, budgets increase primarily because costs increase.
Right, in your budget increase, we had a meeting in June for the budget, right? All right, now, in July, in August, how many thousands of dollars do we add on to the budget without anybody saying anything or not knowing about it?
You're talking about through carry forward.
Through the carry, that
Right.
was your 100,000
Right.
plus, we had capital carryover too.
Right.
Right, I mean, they didn't know about this, they didn't have a chance to vote on it.
Well,
But
if you want-
capital carry forward is $50,000 each year put together to buy a fire truck. That's what capital, or a dump truck. right? I mean, isn't that how we buy those? So you gotta carry those forward every year, or you don't, you lose them. You're right, it goes back into the
Right.
general fund. But if we don't, if we're gonna ask the citizens to pay $100,000 or $50,000 each year towards a $400,000 fire truck,
Right.
we have to carry that forward. There's no question about that.
Right.
So, I mean, that's how we've done it, and that's the procedure we've done. If that's not the procedure we're gonna take care, moving forward, we have to let our department heads know that. Because it's gonna be a different way for thinking, moving towards May and June, I would think.
They can't deliberately spend their entire budget knowingly that they have to do this for something for next year. Unless,
I think
am I correct?
it'd be hard to prove that they're doing that, though. I mean, I think they do a pretty good job of holding back, but, all right, so,
I guess I'm just holding again the
Yep.
consensus of the board.
Yep.
Can we retain this full-time code officer if I can find it within the general government budget to pay for it?
I said yes.
And I said yes.
Mr. Moody.
How are you asking this, Tim? You're saying code enforcement, you ain't saying, now you're not mentioning maintenance person. How do you mean this?
Mr. Moody, when I created this position and I put it in the budget, I was very clear that it was a code enforcement position, full-time. And other duties would be much of the maintenance that I have done in the past and not done a great job at, that could be done better. So that is a full-time code enforcement position with other duties. A full-time code officer with other duties that would include maintenance. Perhaps I didn't spell that out clear enough, but that is what I created in the budget. So what I'm asking you right now is if I can find the money in other parts of the general government budget, I will fund this full-time position, which will be a code officer and a person that will take care of many of these maintenance items that need to be done.
Are you saying that when we go to town meeting next year, you're gonna put this in town meeting as a code enforcement / maintenance?
Sure. I'll word it that way, and you betcha I won't hold back any money.
And
It'll be all in the budget.
On top of that, are you going to keep us appraised of where this money's coming from?
Certainly.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all my questions.
We do budget reviews every 90 days, and you get a copy of the expenses every month. So.
All right, any other questions? All right, seeing none, we will move on.
So, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman,
He still needs to hear.
we have had too many times in this last 6 months where we've made what I thought were clear decisions only to come back and people didn't understand or people didn't remember. So I would like a vote, a motion and a second that says that you've authorized me to find the money within the general government budget to fund this full-time position.
All right, looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion. As Tim said, I'm sorry, I can't repeat it because I'll really miss something. I'll make the motion.
I'll second it. All right, any other questions on what is being asked?
Yeah.
Mr. Moody?
What is the difference between this motion and the one we just put down?
$25,000.
That's it.
That's the difference.
But you're.
And like you just pointed out, Mr.
You're
Moody,
asking us for a motion to have a code enforcement maintenance person. You're asking for a motion, which we have said no.
well, you didn't carry forward the money.
You asked to carry.
That's a different subject as far as I'm concerned. I'm not gonna sit here and vote against something that I just voted against.
But you just voted against carrying forward the money. What I'm asking is, can we keep this position that I offered to this person in good faith? Can we keep that position full-time if I can find the money in the budget?
Mr. Gomez?
Are we negotiating now?
I'm not sure. What do you mean?
You want our votes? You want to change our votes? We voted on this thing, this was the third time I think we voted on this already this year.
but every time that I've asked you why you voted, you always said it was your principle against carry forward.
Right.
So now I'm asking you not to carry it forward. Now I'm asking you to say that you would agree with what you just said, that I can find the money in the general government budget.
Right, now, and then did I ask you about the 25,000, if you could get that out of your budget?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Now, this is why we need line budgeting, not just a couple pages. We need to have individual line pages like we did past, before Norm Dean came. And meet with the advisory board, and the selectmen vote on the advisory board. There's not a piece of paper given to us, so these are the people, members of the advisory board.
All right, so that's another question for another time. All right, how many are in favor?
Wait a minute, I'm
Oh,
not
I'm
done.
sorry, Mr. Bodie.
I'm not done with questions here. We're right back to a full-time code enforcement officer. Everybody seems to be in agreement with that. Okay, everybody. It's the maintenance person. Now, we just voted to have it, for the code enforcement. But the thing is here is not the maintenance person. Now you want us to vote for you to give you money to pay a maintenance person who we don't want.
No, you're not giving me any money. I'm
Allowing you, all right.
I'm finding it, that's in the existing budget.
Yeah. And we're right back to the maintenance person again.
Would it be better if I just said a full-time code officer and other duties as assigned?
We're just rewording it.
And just,
Same music, different title.
just let me point this out respectfully. Your role is to oversee the budget. That's your role as a board. My role is to carry out the personnel, carry out the job descriptions, carry out the hiring and discipline and firing. That's what you hire me for. So I created a job description for this position, and I put in maintenance items, because in previous conversations when Dave Savage was on this board, Dave had come to me privately and said, you know, you need to find a full-time person that can do code enforcement and XYZ. So that's kind of what got my wheels spinning, that this would be a good opportunity to find somebody that could do the code enforcement and other duties. So I think I have the authority to create job descriptions and assign other duties. You have the authority to oversee the budget and make sure we don't overspend. And so what I'm asking you to do is to work with me. Allow me to be able to maintain this position within the confines of the budget that we have right now.
Can I make a statement now?
Yes.
If this isn't something that you're going to do as far as allowing a person to take care of all of these extra duties, who's gonna do the stuff that's on this piece of paper here? What are we gonna do with all of this that needs to be done, and looks like we've got some problems that have been around for a while, and Tim isn't gonna have time to get that done within his job description.
Their response. I don't disagree with you. But when that list of duties is done, what then? For another 8 or 10 months, you're gonna have to keep coming up with this, or there is nothing there for that person? I got no problem against the code enforcement officer, but I'm just reiterating. When we went to town meeting, the town meeting report said a code enforcement officer. They did not say anything about a maintenance person. You wanna take this back to town meeting next year and slash it, whatever the people direct me to do, I'm for it. But right now, that is not how I see it. I'm sorry.
So I think, Ron, Mr. Moody, excuse me, the list is ongoing, right? The list is always added to. I mean, this list is not shortened up since I've been on here with the property maintenance. I mean, the list keeps building and building and building. We get calls all the time about this property or that property isn't living up to it, so.
I'm not disagreeing with you, Al. My point is, it
Yes,
did
I
not
don't
go to town meeting that way.
Right, so
You want to
Within-
bring it up next year, fine and
within-
dandy, and
within
whatever
the-
they say, I'm for it.
within the money that is available at this point in the budget, are we willing to give the town manager authority to keep the code enforcement person going?
That ain't what you're asking.
That's what I'm asking.
If we say yes to that,
Yep.
you're keeping the code enforcement and maintenance man going.
You're keeping a full-time code officer,
Yep.
period. Period.
Yep. Then what are you gonna do about these listed?
I'm
Well,
going
property.
to, I'm going to assign them, which is my job,
Yeah,
I'm going to assign them to people that I know can get it done. You've got I'm asking for a full-time code officer, period.
All right, Amber?
and use the 52,750.
But I need more money, so I gotta find it from other places in that general government where we're not gonna spend it.
Amber?
If you turn this down, you lose a full-time code enforcement officer, so you went from having someone to no one, and you have all these people that are building. How are you gonna answer to the citizens when their properties are brought to a screeching halt because they have no one to do their inspections, and their contractors can't move forward without the inspections?
Mr. Roy?
But have you talked to Norwich Walk and Anson and Abington to see if they'll share a full-time code enforcement officer and put this to bed?
As far as I know, in the past, we
You guys can keep
have,
on wording this question 100 different ways tonight, but let's get to the facts of it. Go to other towns and see if they're willing to go full-time.
in the past,
We've
we
always
have.
gonna do all the maintenance.
We've already been there.
Hold it.
Chris,
We'll
do you-
make it.
There's no working for maintenance.
They can say that all they want, there's always work to add on to.
Hey, all right, we're gonna keep it down. Now, Chris, in the past, we have. In this very time, we have not, I believe. But in the past, that's happened before. We've talked to Anson, we've talked to these people. There's very many people that want to share, Chris. I mean, there isn't very many that want to. Maybe now they might, but I don't see it happening. Yes.
Just, I'm looking at the code enforcement list here, 11 building permits, and a total of 34 for this year. So we've got 11 new homes, people investing in this town. There's gonna have to be several inspections, I believe, 10, right? 10 inspections on each one of those 11 homes. Plumbing permits. As far as a full-time code enforcement officer, I think we can do this. And quibbling about the maintenance, which is definitely important, but you guys, we've got to do this. If we don't do this, Mr. Watt will walk down the road and get a job somewhere else, most likely, or continue his code enforcement training and go get it, because there are lots of openings for code enforcement. And, we need this now. We can't. I agree that maybe the way it was handled maybe wasn't exactly correct, but we've admitted that, and we know that, and we have gone over this and over this and over this, and this is really, really silly that we're holding our town back because of a technicality that can easily be fixed, as Mr. Moody said at the next town meeting, whatever. But in the meantime, we need this position filled, and we need it filled now. Whether he
Right.
is toilets or inspecting buildings, we need to do this.
Roy?
Isn't it worth a shot to try? I mean, I guess you don't know if you don't try,
Yes.
right? And if it doesn't pan out, then you
Exactly.
kill it next year. I mean,
I agree with you.
I believe Tim, if he says he can keep him busy doing old jobs, I don't see why it can't be tried. It's 25 grand, I know.
I have already seen this year as I've been roofing that after COVID's gone through, the numbers of contractors trying to start their own thing who don't know what they're doing and can need a code enforcement officer has been skyrocketing, not just here but in other places. Even just roofing, I'm seeing that this is something that is really needed. And I'm just on the side seeing it over and over and over and over.
Thank you, Docs.
Thank you.
All right, I agree with Mr. Roy, we gotta move on. And I encourage someone to vote yes. All those in favor? Opposed? All right, it is denied. All right, we will move on. All right, number 3, discuss the use of ATVs on town roads.
Okay, in your packets, there's a sheet about, from the town of Norwalk that looks like this. They have been discussing opening their public roads to ATV use. Because Norwalk, Anson, Solon, Cornville, all of our surrounding communities will be talking about this, I thought it'd be a good idea at least to start talking about it. Let me be clear, I'm not recommending anything tonight. I'm not recommending any action the board takes tonight on this. Just I wanted everybody to be aware that it's happening. If I did recommend anything, I'd recommend perhaps an agenda item that included a public hearing at a future meeting where we could get input from the public in regards to this and have members of the Madison Anson ATV Club speak to it as well, because this is going to be a hot button issue as they are removing the rail and the railroad ties from the existing rail system right now from Emden to Oakland. So I just wanted to put that out there.
See, Jeff is here. Jeff, anything you'd like to share with us?
My intention was to be a fly on the wall.
Okay, you can be there.
I think there's great economic impact with anything that's new. There's apt to be a certain amount of headache. ATVing is a $500 million a year economic impact in the state of Maine, and I think that if we don't jump on board in some form or fashion, I think we're missing the boat. A lot of economic opportunity for businesses in the town. That's all I'm prepared to give you.
So what we'll look at is probably October, because we're not gonna wanna do this in East Madison.
No, we'll give folks a month to think about it.
I thought they were supposed to have the trussels done like the middle of September. They've been working on, I guess they got the Water Street one done. And they've been working on the trestle one. And their biggest hold off is the one over Jones Brook.
By the sanitary.
Right, yeah, that's by far the worst one. I think they gotta get a big crane or something there, I'm not sure.
You have an update on that, Jeff?
No, I haven't heard much of anything other than
Jeff Ireland. Sorry. Yep.
There were some delays regarding Madison Anson trestle because of some bird issues. There's a large nest on top of the trestle, and there needs to be this, not really a permitting process, but some protocols that need to be happening. The birds can't be too young before we don't want to traumatize the birds. The birds have to be able to fly on their own before anything can be relocated or anything like that. People have been walking, and much to my chagrin, ATVing already on the trails, which doesn't really bother the birds. But getting heavy equipment on the birds would be considered detrimental. That's been the biggest delay. I realize this is Madison. North of here, things are progressing pretty rapidly, expecting to be able to get ATVs, hopefully in town Anson by the end of October, be able to get them into North Anson within a week or two. So things are moving from south to north. There have been a number of contributors to the system as far as getting things done. The larger trestles being taken care of by general contractors. A couple of contractors have been plagued with a couple of issues that have slowed them down. It's been tough getting contractors for them. The contractors, general contractors, and contractors of this nature are extremely busy. And in the past, when trestles have gone out to bid, there's been 10, 12, 15 people, companies that have bid on the project, and there's been a struggle to get one or two to bid at this point. The state's been choreographing that. The North Anson trestle bid has been awarded, is due to start, and I believe the Madison Anson trestle bid has been awarded, but it's not slated to start again for reasons previously mentioned for another few weeks. Not expecting to have any ATV traffic into town, into Madison this season at this point. I think this is gonna be more of a springtime issue.
All right, thank you. All right, so we'll schedule something for October.
Yep.
All right, number 4, discuss relocating ice rink.
Mr. Chairman, you asked this be put on the agenda, and I certainly understand why the progress on the development of 55 Weston Avenue continues. The developers are waiting for their financial approval from Maine Housing Authority. I see realistically we have a couple of options for an ice rink. You could probably create a smaller ice rink on the current site until you sell the rest of it, but I don't know if that would be the one I recommend. You could move it back up on Thomas Street where it was before. We have some residents' concerns about flooding that happened in the past up there. And then the road commissioner actually made a recommendation several months ago about looking into creating a space for it up by the playground, up on Main Street in that green area where there is already a catch basin. So I throw that out to you, and I've asked some folks to come here that have a little bit more experience with that. Sean Bean is here, and he has offered help on this process, and so I told you everything I know now.
Jeff, what do you think that would cost to move up there to
Up to the playground,
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah,
I'd have to get some numbers together. I mean, do you want it kept you want it grassed in, or do you want it paved? You'd have to run some curbing or something around the bottom of that fence to keep the water in, and if, obviously if you're gonna do that, you might as well pave the thing, and that would give you an opportunity to, when you have an activity or something up there, to be on a paved surface. But you'd have to get water, I believe the water, you'd have to run a water line into it. But as far as the building, that building down there, if I remember correctly, the last time we moved that, it was questionable about being moved again. So that's something that you might want to consider, into the price also of building a small building or buying one somewhere, if you was going to have a warming hut.
Now, do we see any way that we could use that property for another season?
I think that's reasonable, if you left everything where it was and then made
Coming up with
plans.
some numbers for.
Well, that project there, that wouldn't be able, that definitely would not happen this fall, I can tell you that right now. That would have to be at least a year out.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about using the site that we have passed for another year.
I'm talking about the playground on Main Street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So could you kind of figure out maybe some numbers for that? And
I can do that.
Figure out what you think would work. Amanda, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was just gonna make a comment that between the weather and trying to make ice, how much use does that really get?
Well, I think that's used quite a bit myself, and
Well,
just passing by.
But to Mr. Manor's point, it's a shorter season. It seems to be a shorter season every year. I would say usually mid-January to mid-February, maybe the end of February.
Because it seems like some years it just doesn't work.
Right.
Trying to make ice and then someone who knows how to do it. And you're gonna be up there at midnight when it's 0 outside. And
Right.
Sean?
I know from my son working there, they've worked really hard the last 3 years, and I caution against putting it back on Thomas Street, because I think vandalism and stuff is taking place there. It's not in the center of town. I had told Tim when you guys had the meeting on the 29th of August to look at that piece on Main Street, because I told him Maple Crest is across the road. Those residents get to enjoy the kids on the playground in the summer, and in the winter they'd be able to enjoy the kids out there ice skating. I know on average there's, I'm gonna say 20 kids a week, and sometimes up to 30, that Kyle was taught to skate, to use the rink. And it's hard to make ice, but they usually start, I know he's done it the last few years. Sometimes they get it in by 15th of December and it'll last till March. Depends on the weather. There's better ways to create ice and keep ice. And if you guys need help, let me know.
I think on Thomas Street, we ran into a problem of the water escaping, creating a hole through, and it flooded out a couple of houses down on, a couple of basements down on the next street over. I don't
left
know
the water on.
Right.
And went somewhere.
Went down, and so going back there, I don't think is a great idea. I think more towards Main Street would be the idea. Mary?
If you put it by the playground, which I think would be an excellent idea, I would be very concerned about paving over the green space, because that green area makes that area around the school and, you know, very, very nice, and we need more green space in town, and you would lose that by paving it. There's other ways to create your rink without having to lose the grass in the summer.
Jack?
If you remember when we put the playground in, we had the drain put in with the idea that potentially someday we may put an ice rink up there. The drain is in the center of that green space for that particular purpose.
We already figure out some plastic to cover or something like that, so let's move forward as long as we get this year to be able to use that space at Western Avenue. I think we can move forward with the town meeting for next year.
We won't be able to make it as large as we have in the past, but I think we can make it useful.
Okay. All right, select board concerns. Mr. Moody?
None, sir.
Mr. Manta? None. Mrs. Blair?
I do have one,
Yes.
and it is in regard to our discussion earlier about Mr. Watt's position. And I'm a little confused because if we don't, we obviously aren't gonna do that, if get additional money, does he lose his job now? How does that work? And I'm sorry to bring it back up, but I'm confused about that.
I think it's a conversation that Jay and I have to have. So, I don't know the answer to that right now.
Mr. Gopi?
No.
All right. Citizens' concerns? Citizens' concerns? Seeing none, looking for a motion to go into executive session to discuss an economic development matter pursuant to 1 MRS Section 405 6C. Good promotion. Second, motion is second to go into executive session to discuss an economic development matter pursuant to 1 MRS Section 405 6C. All in favor? Yeah. Motion carries.